Hello, average engineers. Today I want to talk about a special topic, the death of the data warehouse. Has it been replaced by the Lakehouse or not? I'm starting to think that unruly upstart, the Lakehouse, has finally cut the neck of the data warehouse. I mean, it has literally been decades since the data warehouse, Kimball, Imam style data warehousing has reigned supreme for literally forever, for 20 years now, probably, or more. But it really seems like it's gone the way of the dinosaurs. I mean, you hardly even hear about the name Kimball anymore, which is crazy considering 15 years ago it was all the rage. So that's what I want to talk about today, the death of the data warehouse. Now, that probably all depends on if you're a millennial, Gen Z, kind of who you are, where you came from, what your generation is. The generation I grew up in, that's when SQL Server reigned supreme. Everybody had a data warehouse in SQL Server. If you didn't, you were an idiot, and that was the only way to do it. I mean, you laughed at the people that were using Oracle and Postgres, but times have changed for sure. Some of the new junior data engineers I've hired and worked with, they've never even heard of the data warehouse toolkit. They've never heard of Kimball, and they don't really even know what a data warehouse is, although a data lake or lakehouse is very familiar to them. I mean, part of the death of the data warehouse comes from the fact that just if you're a CTO and you're running a company or some sort of data leader, you don't want to tell the people above you that you're running a data warehouse. That's old school. You need to say the words AI. You need to say the words Lakehouse because they're popular. Like it or not, the marketing from different companies like Databricks, Snowflake, I mean, the Lakehouse is the rage. They have made it the de facto standard simply by the amount of marketing material they've pushed out these recent years. So you have no choice but to say the data warehouse is dead. What exactly is a data warehouse for all you Gen Z, millennial, avocado toast eating milk toast programmers? What is a data warehouse? From my point of view, a data warehouse is really a set of modeling techniques and technology underneath that data modeling. For the most part, when people talk about classic data warehouses, they're talking about SQL Server, Oracle, Postgres, MySQL. They're talking about relational databases. And in fact, they're talking about not only those relational databases, they're talking about a certain data model, an OLAP, OLAP model of data that usually includes some sort of Snowflake star schema. You'll hear the words Kimball, Imam thrown around. It's usually a combination of those things. A relational database with some sort of analytics type schema applied to it in the form of Kimball. I mean, honestly, back in the day, that was the only option. There was no Databricks or Snowflake around this. This was the data platforms that I built for many years. For a decade, I built data warehouses on Postgres, on SQL Server, and Oracle. And that's all we did. We played around with the ERD diagrams, we played around with modeling. We argued about Kimball all day long, and it was fact, dimensions, this, that, that was it, man. It's hard to say when that data warehouse exactly died, but it definitely did die, and the Lakehouse has risen in its ashes. Yeah, the water seems to get a little muddy here, but, if the data warehouse is dead, you can bet that the Lakehouse struck the death blow. It kind of started slow. If you remember a couple 8 years back, all of a sudden, data lakes were a thing. What were data lakes? They were kind of a place or a dumping ground, typically cloud storage, so like S3. And people would start dumping files in there, Parquet files particularly, although, some people did dump JSON files, CSV files, Parquet files all together, all different types of files in a single place. And in combination with tools like Athena from AWS or BigQuery from Google, they were able to actually start running analytics at scale on this sort of structured data, and it slowly started to kind of pick at the corner of the traditional data warehouse, where people thought they had to take all this data, third normal form it, model it, put it into a classic relational database, run analytics on it. Well, that's started to be not the case anymore. But the data lake wasn't the perfect world. It didn't have things like constraints, schemas, governance, ACID, CRUD, updates like you could expect from a data warehouse, right? You need to be able to run delete statements, update statements, some sort of constraints around your schema, things like that didn't exist in the data lake, which made the data warehouse still a very important part of the landscape. But then that changed all of a sudden. All of a sudden along came Databricks, Snowflake, Delta Lake, Iceberg, things like that, and it really shifted things quickly. All of a sudden you could build a lakehouse, which is aka a data lake with some constraints on top. You could run CRUD statements create, update, delete. You could have ACID properties. You could run it on Spark. You could add constraints. You had schema. You had governance now with Databricks, Unity Catalog, etc. You had all the things that you used to have to use a data warehouse for, except it wasn't a data warehouse any longer. And they didn't tell you to model the data like a data warehouse because you didn't need to. You were no longer constrained by a relational database. You could use Spark or whatever other distributed system you wanted. And that's essentially why the Lakehouse killed the data warehouse. Sure, there's still people using the data warehouse. There's still people using COBOL mainframes. Of course, there's people still running data warehouses on SQL Server, Postgres, Oracle, whatever, but that's going to be the small subset. They'll always be there. Of course, they will. Big corporations take a long time to change. It's hard to change for them. But you know it's true. Everybody's moving away from that to Databricks, Snowflake, whatever. So the data warehouse is definitely dead. Now when I've hired junior data engineers, sure, I've said, go read the Data Warehouse Toolkit because it's just good data modeling in general. You'll learn a lot of stuff, but these people don't even know what a data warehouse is. They don't know who Kimball is, and they don't care, and honestly, I don't either anymore. Things are not all perfect in the Lakehouse world, trust me. Governance still can be an issue. Databricks has made a lot of strides there, but still, it's not like it used to be. Primary foreign keys are still a little funky. Obviously, costs are a huge concern now with these new systems like Databricks and Snowflake. Costs are rising quickly. But in the end, truly, the data warehouse is dead. It's no more. If you're still using it, you're a dinosaur.